AITA for divorcing my wife after she admitted I was never the man she loved? My name is Austin. I'm 36, and until last year I lived in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, in the kind of house people point to and say, "You two are doing great." I work as a project manager for a commercial company, which basically means I spend my days making sure expensive things don't break and my nights answering emails from people who forgot to plan ahead. I was married to Claire for 7 years. She was 34 when everything fell apart, and for most of our marriage, I thought being dependable was the same thing as being loved. Looking back, I think that was the first lie I told myself. Our house sat on a quiet street where people waved from driveways, argued politely about lawn care, and left bags of salt near the garage door every winter. We had a shared mortgage that came out automatically every month, and I tracked it in a budgeting spreadsheet because that was the kind of person I was. Not romantic, maybe, but steady. I knew when the insurance renewed, when Claire's car needed an oil change, and exactly how much extra we could put toward the principal if I took on a few weekend project calls. People saw the house, the trimmed bushes, the new deck stain, and the 2 cars in the driveway, and assumed we were fine. I did too, for longer than I should have. Claire and I met through a mutual friend at a backyard cookout. She was funny in a dry way, the kind of woman who could say one sentence under her breath and make everyone at the table laugh so hard they would spill their drink. I liked that about her immediately. She had a sharp edge, but not in a cruel way. At least, not then. Our first few dates were simple. Pizza after work. A walk through a park. Coffee that turned into dinner because neither of us wanted to leave. I wasn't flashy. I didn't show up with huge bouquets, rent hotel rooftops, or write long dramatic messages. I was more of a text me when you get home guy. Your tire pressure light is on. Let's stop by the air pump guy. I made coffee and left your mug by the machine guy. Claire used to laugh at that. You show affection like a dad checking a fuse box, she said once. I said, "Is the fuse box working?" She smiled and kissed me. Yeah, it is. When I met her parents, Marilyn and Grant, they liked me fast. Too fast, maybe, but I didn't see it that way at the time. It was a Sunday dinner at their house, roast chicken, green beans, and a table so clean it looked staged. Grant asked me about my job, my benefits, my retirement plan, and whether my company was stable. Marilyn kept refilling my water and watching Claire with this pleased little expression, like she had finally brought home something they could all agree on. After dinner, while Claire was helping in the kitchen, Marilyn walked me to the front door and said, "You're good for her, Austin." I remember feeling proud. I remember thinking that was what a future mother-in-law was supposed to say. Grant shook my hand and said, "She needs someone solid." Again, I took it as a compliment. 1.5 years later, Claire and I got married. Nothing huge. About 80 people, a church ceremony, a reception at a local event space, chicken or salmon, the whole thing. Her parents cried. My parents cried. Claire looked beautiful and nervous, and when she said her vows, her voice shook enough that I thought it was emotion. Now I wonder if it was doubt. After we got married, I found out Claire had more credit card debt than I realized. Not an unmanageable amount of debt, but enough that it made the first year tight. She was embarrassed, so I didn't make a big deal out of it. I sat down with her one night at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and said, "Okay, we'll make a plan." She stared at the numbers like they were a diagnosis. "I should have told you before the wedding," she said. "Probably," I said, "but we're married now, so we deal with it." I didn't say that to be noble. I meant it. Marriage, to me, was the place where problems came in from outside and got handled together inside. So I took extra work. I cut back on things I wanted. We paid the cards down faster than expected. When her car started making a grinding noise, I took it in. When the insurance company messed up a claim after a storm damaged part of our roof, I sat on hold during my lunch breaks until it got fixed. When her family got pushy about holidays, I stood between them and her. Marilyn had a way of making requests sound like moral obligations. "Claire, Thanksgiving is really important to your father this year," she would say in the family group chat, followed by 3 turkey emojis and a photo from some previous holiday where everyone looked trapped but well-dressed. If Claire got overwhelmed, I was the one who texted back, "We'll come by for dessert, but we're keeping the morning to ourselves." Claire would squeeze my hand and say, "Thank you. I can't deal with her today." I liked being the person she could lean on. That was part of the problem. I started confusing being useful with being loved. For a while, life looked like progress. We bought the house outside Columbus. I replaced the cracked boards on the deck. We painted the guest room. I learned how to install a backsplash from YouTube and only expressed frustration 2 times. Our savings grew. The mortgage payments went out on time. Claire got promoted. I got a better title and a little more money. The house looked better every year. My marriage felt emptier every month. It wasn't dramatic at first. That would have been easier to notice. Claire didn't suddenly start screaming at me or disappearing for whole weekends. She just became less present. She stopped asking about my day unless there was silence to fill. When I made dinner, she would say she wasn't hungry and then eat cereal at 10:30. She stopped sitting beside me on the couch and started sitting in the armchair across the room with her phone tilted away from me. I told myself it was stress. Her job had gotten more demanding. Mine wasn't exactly peaceful either. We were both tired. Everyone said marriage had seasons, and I believed that because believing it gave me something to do. Be patient. Be steady. Keep showing up. Then the late night started. The first time, she texted around 6:15. Late meeting. Don't wait on dinner. I had already made chicken, rice, and roasted broccoli. I covered her plate with foil and put it in the microwave so she could heat it up when she got home. She came in a little after 9 o'clock, kicked off her shoes near the garage door, and said, "I'm exhausted." I kissed her cheek. "Food's in the microwave." "Thanks," she said, but she never ate it. By 10:30, I threw it away. One late meeting became 2. Then it became deadline stuff, team issue, coworker emergency, office drama, and I already told you this week was going to be insane. Some nights, she came home smelling of evening drinks and cold night air, not office coffee and printer paper. I noticed, but I didn't say it that way. I didn't want to be that husband, the suspicious one, the one sniffing around for proof before he had a reason to ask. So I asked gently, "Everything okay at work?" She opened the fridge without looking at me. "It's just work. You've been home late a lot." "Austin, not everything is about us." That landed harder than it should have. I was standing by the sink with a dish towel in my hand, and she was staring into the fridge like she was hoping a different life might be behind the orange juice. "I didn't say it was," I said. "You kind of did." Then she grabbed a yogurt and went upstairs. After that, I started noticing patterns. She showered as soon as she came home, even if she said she was too tired to talk. She kept her phone face down on the counter. If it buzzed, her eyes moved before her hand did. Sometimes she took calls on the back porch, even in cold weather, with her arms wrapped around herself under the yellow porch light. I didn't check her phone. I want to be clear about that. I thought about it, sure. I'm not going to pretend I was above the temptation, but I didn't want to become someone I wouldn't respect. So instead, I became someone almost as sad, a man pretending not to notice where his wife put her phone. One Tuesday in February, I made pasta and garlic bread because it was cold, and I thought maybe a normal dinner would make us feel normal for an hour. Claire texted at 7:40. "Running late. Eat without me." I did. I sat alone at the kitchen island, watched the steam disappear from the bowl I had made for her, and listened to the furnace kick on and off. When she came home close to midnight, she moved quietly, like she hoped the house wouldn't see her. I was still awake in the living room. "Hey," I said. She flinched. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Waiting for you." "That sounds healthy." I tried to keep my voice even. "I'm asking because you came home at midnight and wouldn't look at me." She rubbed her forehead. "You're exhausted, Austin. You're turning stress into suspicion." "I'm not suspicious. I'm worried. You're overthinking." The dishwasher hummed behind us. Her phone lit up in her hand, and she turned the screen toward her body before I could even see the notification. I looked at it, then at her. She said, "Don't." I didn't say anything. "You didn't have to." That was how a lot of our conversations went. I asked something basic. She made it about my tone, my stress, my timing, my tiredness. By the end, I was apologizing for asking why my wife felt like a locked door. The strangest part was how normal she could act around other people. At her parents' house, she smiled enough to pass inspection. At neighborhood cookouts, she stood beside me and laughed at the right moments. In photos, her hand rested on my arm. In real life, she barely touched me unless someone was watching. One Sunday dinner with her parents changed something in me, even though nothing obvious happened. Marilyn had made roast chicken again, because apparently every emotional ambush in that family required poultry. Grant was talking about interest rates and home values. Marilyn asked about the mortgage, and I mentioned that we had been making small extra payments when we could. Marilyn beamed. That's wonderful. Claire, you were smart to marry someone solid. Claire didn't smile. She pushed a piece of chicken around her plate. Yeah, she said. Smart. One word. Flat as a receipt. I looked at her, waiting for the joke, the correction, anything. She kept looking down at her plate. Marilyn didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she noticed and decided not to. On the drive home, I said, that was weird. What your mom said. Claire stared through the windshield. She says stuff like that. Your response was weird. I agreed with her. You sounded like you were reading a hostage note. She gave a tired laugh with no humor in it. Can we not do this tonight? So we didn't. That was another thing I was good at, not doing this tonight. I kept postponing pain like it charged interest only if acknowledged. The first real crack came a few weeks later. I woke up around 1 o'clock in the morning because I was thirsty. Claire wasn't in bed. That wasn't new anymore, but the bathroom light wasn't on, and I didn't hear the shower. I went downstairs in my socks, careful on the steps because the house made little settling noises at night. The kitchen was dark except for the microwave clock and the faint porch light coming through the sliding glass door. I reached for a glass, then froze. Claire was outside on the back porch, phone pressed to her ear, whispering. I couldn't hear everything at first. Just pieces. No, I know. A pause. I can't just leave overnight. Another pause. Then she said, clear enough that my whole body went cold, I just need to figure out the divorce without causing a massive disruption in my life. I stood there with one hand on the cabinet handle. Divorce. Not, I'm unhappy. Not, we need counseling. Not, I don't know what to do. Divorce. Like a project. Like paperwork. Like something she had already accepted and was now arranging around inconvenience. I backed away before she turned around. I went upstairs, got into bed, and lay on my side facing the wall. 10 minutes later, she came in quietly. She slid under the covers and sighed like she was the one carrying something alone. I didn't sleep. I was lying beside my wife and grieving a conversation she didn't know I had heard. For the next few days, I acted normal because I didn't know what else to do. I made coffee and left her mug by the machine. I went to work. I answered emails about broken rooftop units and delayed shipments. I stopped at Kroger for milk and trash bags. I nodded at our neighbor, who was salting his driveway and complaining about the weather. Inside, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately. Another part was terrified that if I asked the question, I would have to live with the answer. As long as I said nothing, there was still a thin, stupid layer of pretend over everything. I hated myself for needing it. That Friday, I met my friend Derek for lunch. Derek and I had known each other since our 20s. He was the kind of friend who didn't pry until he had to, and then he pried with full force. We sat in a sports bar near my office, the kind with 2 mini TVs and fries that were only good for the first 6 minutes. I barely touched mine. Derek watched me check my phone for the 3rd time. You waiting for good news or bad news? Neither. That's usually bad news. I tried to smile. Work stuff. Nonsense. I looked at him. He leaned back. You look like you haven't slept in a week. I'm fine. No, you're quiet. You keep calling it calm, but it looks like you're just hurting quietly. That almost broke me. I stared at the basket of fries and felt my throat tighten. I think Claire's planning to leave, I said. Derek didn't react dramatically. He just nodded once. Did she tell you that? I overheard something. What kind of something? I rubbed my hands over my face. Enough. He was quiet for a second. Are you safe? That question surprised me. Yeah, it's not like that. Okay, then be smart. Don't go home and try to win a conversation with someone who's already been having it without you. I don't want to fight. Peace isn't the same as letting yourself get erased. I carried that sentence around for days. The confession happened after a girls' night. At least, that was what Claire called it. She came downstairs around 6:30 on a Saturday wearing jeans, boots, and a black sweater I hadn't seen in months. She looked nice. I told her that, because even then I was still stupidly hopeful that kindness might land somewhere. She glanced at me through the hallway mirror. Thanks. Who's going? Just people from work. That's not really a girls' night. She sighed. Austin. I held up my hands. Okay. She left, and I spent the evening doing laundry and watching a basketball game I didn't care about. Around 11:45, I got a text. Getting an Uber. Don't wait up. I was already waiting. The Uber headlights swept across the living room wall at 12:20. I heard the car door, then her uneven steps on the walkway. She came in holding her heels in one hand. Her mascara was smudged under one eye, and she smelled of evening drinks, perfume, and cold air. I was standing at the kitchen island. She blinked at me. Of course you're awake. I wanted to make sure you got home okay. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you're waiting for me to become happy. The sentence came out unsteady, but sharp. I felt it hit and tried not to show it. Claire, you have had too much to drink. Sit down. She laughed, but her face twisted like she might cry. You're always so good. Do you know how exhausting that is? I didn't answer. She dropped her heels by the island. One landed on its side. You make coffee, she said, pointing vaguely toward the machine. You fix things. You talk to my dad about gutters. My mom thinks you walk on water. Let's get you some water. No, don't do that. Don't be nice right now. My hand went to my phone on the counter. I don't know if I had already decided or if my body moved before my brain caught up. I opened the voice memo app and tapped record with the screen facing down. I'm not proud of needing to do it, but something in me understood that the clear-headed Claire was careful, and the Claire who had been out drinking was saying things she might later bury. She leaned against the counter and started crying, but not softly. It was angry crying. You were good, she said. You were stable. You were perfect on paper. I felt the room tilt a little. What does that mean? I asked. She wiped under her eye with the heel of her hand. It means exactly what it sounds like. Claire, my parents loved you. God, they loved you so much. Austin has a good job. Austin is respectful. Austin has benefits. Austin calls when he says he will. Austin won't embarrass us. I stood there, barely breathing. And you? I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked. For the first time in months, maybe years, she didn't hide behind irritation. I thought I could become the kind of person who wanted that, she said. My voice came out lower than I expected. Wanted me. She closed her eyes. That was the answer before she even spoke. There was someone before you, she said. I already knew his name, though I had only heard it 2 times in 7 years. Evan. A guy from before me. A guy Claire's family apparently hated. Early in our relationship, she had described him as a mistake from her 20s and changed the subject so fast I didn't push. Evan, I said. Her face crumpled. You don't understand what it was like back then. Everyone was pushing me. My parents said he had no future. They said I was ruining my life. Then you came along, and you were so easy to approve of. Easy to approve of. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain didn't know where else to put the pain. So you married me because your parents liked me? No, not just that. What else? You were safe. The word hung between us. She covered her mouth, then lowered her hand. That sounds awful, but you were. You were the safe choice. I thought that would be enough. I gripped the edge of the counter. Enough for what? For a life. But not for love. She didn't answer. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why she let me pay down debt, build decks, plan holidays, and defend her from the same parents she had apparently let choose me like an appliance. I wanted to ask how many times she had looked at me across our kitchen table and compared me to a man who wasn't even in the room. Instead, I said, "Go sit down." She frowned, confused by my calm. That's it. You're not thinking clearly right now. You always do that. Do what? Act reasonable, so I feel crazy. That was the closest I came to losing it. No, I said. I act reasonable because one of us has to remember tomorrow. She stared at me, then started crying again. I got her a glass of water. I helped her sit on the couch. I put a trash can near her in case she started to feel unwell. I turned off the lights downstairs, went up, grabbed a pillow, and slept in the guest room with the door closed. I didn't really sleep. I listened to the house, the furnace, a car passing outside, Claire moving once down the hall, my own breathing, uneven and embarrassing. In the morning, I woke up before her. Old habits are hard to kill, so I still made coffee. But I didn't put her mug by the machine. She came downstairs around 9 o'clock, pale and squinting, wearing one of my old Ohio State sweatshirts. That almost hurt worse. She looked like my wife again. Morning, she said carefully. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee untouched. She looked around. Did I do something stupid? I set my phone on the table between us. Her face changed. How much do you remember? I asked. She swallowed. Not much. That's convenient. Austin, I had too much to drink. I know. I probably said things weird. You said enough. She stared at the phone. Did you record me? Enough to protect myself if you decide later that I'm making this up. Her eyes filled with panic, then anger. That is wrong. So is finding out your marriage was a family-approved backup plan. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking slightly. I didn't mean it like that. No, you said it exactly like that. You just weren't clear-headed enough to edit it. She looked away. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The kitchen was bright with pale winter sunlight. There were salt stains on the garage floor visible through the open laundry room door. A normal morning, except everything in it had been split open. Finally, I said, I'm not going to punish you for not loving me, but I'm done being punished for loving you. She whispered, what does that mean? It means I'm calling an attorney. Her head snapped up. Austin, no. We shouldn't make decisions like this after one bad night. One bad night didn't make this. It named it. She started crying, but quietly this time. I hated that it still hurt to see. I hated that part of me wanted to comfort her. That instinct had run my life for 7 years. I stood up before I could fall back into it. The attorney's name was Dana Price. Derek recommended her through a coworker who had gone through what he called a clean but expensive divorce, which sounded about right. Her office was downtown, with neutral furniture, a water cooler, and a stack of intake forms that asked questions no one should have to answer about their own marriage. Dana was 45, direct, and had the calm face of someone who had heard every version of heartbreak and knew which parts mattered legally. I brought mortgage documents, bank statements, retirement account information, insurance paperwork, and a folder so organized, she actually paused and said, Project manager? Is it that obvious? A little. I told her the basics. I did not play the recording. I told her it existed. She nodded. Documentation is not revenge. It's protection. But don't use it unless you need to. I don't want to destroy her. Good. That usually gets expensive. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Then she looked at me more seriously. What do you want? I want out clean. Clean as possible. Careless as not. I'm not trying to take everything. I didn't ask what you're trying not to take. I asked what you want. I had no answer. The truth was, I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed that I had stayed so long. Embarrassed that I had mistaken gratitude for intimacy. Embarrassed that I had let someone live in a house I was helping build while keeping one foot in a fantasy I couldn't compete with. Dana tapped her pen once against the legal pad. Wanting peace is reasonable, she said. Negotiating like you deserve nothing is not. That sentence joined Derek's in the small collection of things I repeated to myself when I felt weak. When Claire realized I was serious, she tried every version of minimizing. At first, she said she didn't remember the confession. Then she remembered, but said I misunderstood. Then she said she had been processing old feelings. Then she said all marriages had hard seasons. She followed me into the hallway one night while I was carrying a laundry basket to the guest room. I said things because I was under the influence, she said. I kept walking. You said things because you had been drinking. That's different from inventing them. You're making this bigger than it is. I stopped and turned around. You were planning a divorce on the back porch before that night. Don't act like I'm the one who introduced the idea. Her mouth opened, then closed. That was how I knew. You heard that, she asked. Enough. She sat down on the stairs like her legs had given out. I didn't know how to talk to you, she said. You've had 7 years. The family found out within days, because Claire couldn't handle losing control of the story. Marilyn started texting first privately, then in the family group chat, as if adding more people would make her sound reasonable. Marilyn, we should all sit down before anyone makes emotional decisions. Grant, marriage has rough patches. Don't throw away 7 years. Claire, can you please not make this uglier than it has to be? I stared at that one for a while. Then I typed back, I'm not discussing this in a group chat. Marilyn replied almost immediately. Marilyn, Austin, we love you. We just think this can be repaired. I wanted to ask if she loved me as a person or as a stabilizing feature in her daughter's life. Instead, I put the phone down. A few minutes later, Claire texted me directly from upstairs. Please don't make me the villain. I replied, then don't make me the villain to keep yourself comfortable. She didn't answer. Mediation took time. Not years, but enough months to make the process feel less like ripping off a bandage and more like removing glass one piece at a time. There were conversations about equity, refinance timelines, buyout options, retirement accounts, furniture division, and legal fees. There were emails that began with, "Per my client," and ended with me staring at the ceiling at midnight. There were days I wanted to give her everything just so I wouldn't have to talk about the house anymore. Dana stopped me more than once. "You can choose peace without volunteering to be erased," she said during one call. At mediation, Claire wore a cream sweater I used to like. She looked tired. So did I. The mediator was a soft-spoken man with reading glasses and a tone so neutral it made everything sound like a scheduling issue. Claire tried to frame it as mutual drifting. "We just grew apart," she said, hands folded neatly in front of her. There wasn't one big thing. I looked at her across the conference table. For a second, I saw the woman I had married. Then I saw the woman who had let me build a life around a version of her that wasn't real. The mediator turned to me. "Austin, would you agree with that description?" Claire's eyes flicked toward me. A warning. A plea. Maybe both. I did not want to humiliate her. I did not want to play the recording in a conference room like some dramatic courtroom scene. But I was not going to sit there and let her turn me into half of a vague weather event. "No," I said. The room went very still. I kept my voice calm. "I agree that the marriage is over. I agree that we should handle it cleanly. I don't agree that this was just two people drifting apart." Claire's jaw tightened. I looked at her, not the mediator. "I'm willing to be fair. I'm not willing to be blamed for the truth you hid." The mediator cleared his throat gently. "Is there information relevant to the division process?" "Only if I'm asked to accept a false narrative," I said. Claire looked down. "That was my revenge, if you can even call it that. Not blasting her online. Not sending the recording to her parents. Not calling Evan. Not making a scene. Just refusing to beg for love that had never been freely given. In the end, I agreed to terms that were not perfect. Claire wanted the house, but she couldn't refinance immediately. We worked out a timeline. I gave up some furniture I liked because I did not want to argue over a sectional that had mostly held silence anyway. I accepted a little less equity than Dana thought I could push for because dragging it out felt like paying rent and misery. Dana made sure I understood every trade. "You're not losing the house because you're weak," she said. "You're choosing what the fight is worth." The day I moved out, the room sounded different. Every footstep echoed. The wedding photos were already down, leaving small nail holes in the hallway. My half of the closet fit into fewer boxes than I expected, which made me feel both relieved and pathetic. Claire stood in the kitchen while I did one last check. The same kitchen where she had told me I was safe. The same island where I had placed my phone between us the next morning. She said, "I never wanted to hurt you like this." I put the spare keys on the counter. "I believe that," I said, "but you were okay with it as long as I didn't know." She started to cry. I walked out before I made her tears my responsibility again. For a while after the divorce, people treated me like a man carrying an invisible injury. Neighbors asked careful questions. Coworkers stopped making wife jokes around me. Derek came over to my new apartment with pizza and a toolbox, then spent 2 hours assembling a secondhand coffee table while insulting the instructions. My apartment was smaller than the house. 1 bedroom, thin walls, a balcony that faced a parking lot, and a kitchen with exactly 2 drawers. I bought a used couch from a guy who said, "minor wear," and meant 1 cushion has seen heavy use. I had a thrifted coffee table, mismatched plates, and no idea how to cook for one without making enough food for 3 days. But somehow, I could breathe in it. There were no cold dinners waiting under foil. No porch whispers. No phone turned face down like a hidden trap. Sunday mornings became laundry, coffee, and quiet music. I deleted old shared calendar reminders one by one. Dentist appointment. Claire's mom's birthday. Mortgage payment check. Anniversary dinner. That last one sat on my screen longer than the others. Then I deleted it too. I heard about Evan through Claire, indirectly at first. Marilyn called me once from a number I almost didn't answer. I shouldn't have picked up, but old habits again. She sounded smaller than usual. "Austin, I just want you to know we never meant for any of this." I stood in my apartment kitchen, staring at a pan in the sink. "Me neither. Claire is having a hard time." "I'm sorry to hear that." She reached out to Evan. I closed my eyes. There it was. Marilyn continued, "He's not interested. Apparently, he's seeing someone. Maybe serious. He told her he didn't want to be involved. I didn't say anything. Marilyn exhaled shakily. He said something like, "I'm not the life you paused." Later, Claire left me a voicemail. I didn't answer the call, but I listened to the message once. Her voice was quiet. "I know I don't have the right to ask how you are. I just wanted to say Evan wasn't. I don't know. I think I made him into something he wasn't because it was easier than admitting what I did to you. I'm sorry, Austin. I know that doesn't fix anything." I deleted the voicemail. Not because I hated her. I didn't. Hate would have required more energy than I had left for that marriage. I deleted it because her regret was not a place I could live anymore. 6 months after the divorce was final, I went to a farmer's market on a Saturday morning because Derek kept telling me I needed hobbies that weren't work, laundry, or staring at college football like it owed me answers. It was one of those clear Ohio mornings where the air still had a bite, but everyone was pretending spring had fully arrived. There were dogs on leashes, kids with pastries, paper bags full of vegetables, jars of local honey, and a coffee truck with a line long enough to suggest either amazing coffee or poor planning. I was standing at a peach stand, picking up fruit, and putting it back down because I had no idea what I was doing. A woman beside me said, "You're judging those peaches like they're applying for a job." I looked over. She had dark hair pulled back, a canvas tote on one shoulder, and the kind of smile that didn't feel like a performance. "I've made worse long-term commitments with less inspection," I said. She laughed. Not polite laughter. Real laughter. "Amaya," she said. "Austin." Then she picked up a peach, pressed it gently near the stem, and handed it to me. "This one. Firm, but not a rock. Smells like a peach. That's the bar. Good to know the standards are clear. They should be. Saves everyone time." We ended up in the coffee line together. She was 33, worked in occupational therapy, and had a dry sense of humor that showed up fast, but never cut too deep. She asked what I did, and when I gave my usual boring explanation about commercial HVAC, she said, "So buildings panic and you tell everyone to calm down?" Basically. That's useful. The word useful used to make something in me tighten. This time, it didn't. Maybe because she wasn't asking me to prove anything. We talked for 20 minutes. Then she said, "I had fun. I'd like to do this again if you would." I stared at her for half a second too long. She tilted her head. Too direct. "No," I said. "Just rare." Her expression softened, but she didn't pry. "Coffee next Saturday?" "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." That sentence should not have felt revolutionary, but it did. Maya did not rescue me. I don't like stories where a person walks in and magically fixes everything someone else broke. It wasn't like that. We moved slowly. Coffee became a walk. A walk became dinner. Dinner became texting about normal things. The difference was how clear she was. "Had a good time tonight. Made it home. Talk tomorrow? Running 10 minutes late. Sorry. Still coming." I'm not asking you to rush. I'm asking if coffee next Saturday sounds good. No guessing. No decoding. No phone face down on the table while her eyes tracked every buzz. Once, after I made a joke too casually about being divorced, she looked at me and said, "You don't have to make that sound casual." I can tell it mattered. I didn't know what to do with that kind of attention. Not dramatic, not invasive, just honest. So I told her a little. Not everything. Enough. She listened without trying to turn it into advice. When I finished, she said, "That must have been lonely." I nodded. "Yeah." She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm sorry. No speech. No fixing. Just presence. I am not going to tell you I was healed by then. I wasn't. I'm still not sure healed is a finish line. Some mornings, I still find myself measuring my worth by what I can handle for someone else. Sometimes I have to stop myself from offering solutions when someone only asked for company. Sometimes silence still makes me nervous. But my life is mine now. My apartment is still small. The coffee table still wobbles if you put your mug on the wrong corner. I cook too much pasta and eat leftovers longer than I should. On Sunday mornings, light comes through the blinds and lands across the kitchen floor, and there is no dread sitting at the table with me. I don't know exactly where things with Maya will go. We are not rushing. I have not declared her the love of my life or started shopping for rings or pretended cautious hope is the same thing as certainty. But a few weeks ago, she came over with peaches from the market and teased me because I still inspected them like they might betray me. I made coffee. She sat at my little kitchen table, looked around at the mismatched plates and the crooked bookshelf Derek helped me build, and said, I like it here. I believed her. That was new. For the first time in years, I wasn't auditioning for a place in someone's life. I was already invited. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.